I move to Mr. Michael Mc Naughton. Mr. Michael Mc Naughton joined Grace Kennedy in 2003 and has held several executive positions, including his current role as Vice President Business Development. Among his responsibilities are the development of new products and expansion into new markets. Being an innovator, he led the deployment of GKMPay, an innovative mobile wallet launched in Jamaica in 2017. A former stockbroker, banker, and entrepreneur, he has made sterling contributions in both Jamaica and Canada. He is an active Rotarian and contributes to both St. Jago High School, his alma mater, and the University of the West Indies. He holds a BSc in Management Studies from the University of the West Indies and an MBA Finance from Manchester Business School, UK. Please welcome Mr. Michael Mc Naughton.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to be here this morning, and I'm hoping that at the end of my presentation, the audience will be a lot clearer in terms of what we're doing in Jamaica as it relates to the mobile payments deployment. I had a few technical issues here earlier. I'm wondering if the video that I have in my presentation will be available. But I mean, yesterday I heard a lot of discussions around the consultations that it's important to have between the issuers and the regulators and the expanded stakeholders. And I mean, I will confidently say, and you will see it a little later in the presentation, that we did have multiple consultations, not just locally, but we guided our consultation with our own regulators in Jamaica through consultation with other jurisdictions. So without further ado, let me go ahead.
Control your cash flow with ease and security wherever you are. GKM Pay is placing convenience right at your fingertips. There's every reason to smile knowing that your utility bill is paid on time. Pay for goods and services on the go with the new payment option from Grace Kennedy. With GKM Pay, transfers are always immediate and hassle-free.
To GKM Pay, have it locked.
GKM Pay, money goes mobile.
So this is actually what you saw was the tail end of some promotional ads we had in Jamaica, which were kind of focused around the product itself and the extent to which it appeals to a wide cross-section of users. So persons who were interested in doing remote services could engage with the product to do bill payments and things like that. Persons who were interested in engaging with large established merchants, these large supermarkets, these price marts, and things like that. I mean, we also built the capability for them to be able to use their mobile wallet in those types of locations. But interestingly, we also built the capability for persons to be able to engage with street vendors, persons who are actually, just selling stuff on the sidewalk. And I mean, they're kind of informal, but the system was actually designed to basically also enable the engagement with them. I did speak earlier about some of the engagements with regulators, some of the consultations that we had. So I mean, I actually led a team. We went to Kenya, and in Kenya we met with both the service provider, meaning Safaricom, the regulators, and then we engaged with customers through focus groups and surveys. And I mean, this was primarily aimed at the regulatory consultation, but also our product development. We then went to the Philippines. We looked at GCash. We met with the telco and the regulator. And I mean, just to ensure that we were covering all the angles, we came to the developed world. So we met with the persons in Canada who offered Zoom Pass. And then in the US, we looked at one of the deployments in the US. And then in the Caribbean, we actually engaged with the regulators in Guyana. Mobile Money Guyana was a mobile wallet deployment that was launched about 3-4 years ago. So we actually met with both the telco, which offered it, the service provider, the regulator, and then we also engaged with customers to find out, what their challenges are, what some of the areas of improvement could be. And I mean, all of this basically rolled into our own consultation with the Bank of Jamaica. That consultation, I think, would have started in about 2011, while they were developing their own regulations. And I will say that at the outset, Bank of Jamaica started with regulations which were pretty much aligned to the banking industry. And then consultation with ourselves and a number of other industry stakeholders resulted in them actually revamping that and coming with regulations that were more aligned with a mobile wallet deployment, which involves non-bank issuers. So, I mean, we think that the result of that consultation was quite interesting, and it was important for the market. In Trinidad, we actually started discussions with the regulator here as well. Similarly, they did have some starting guidelines, which, I mean, as the lady from the central bank said yesterday, they're actually revisiting to see if those guidelines are relevant in a successful mobile payment deployment. In Jamaica, I mean, I'll speak a little bit about the regulations. So the regulations that we now have is actually allowed under published guidelines. So it's not currently statute. I mean, we had some discussions yesterday about the sandbox through which the regulator can actually learn and be guided by actually a practical deployment rather than a theoretical paper. So, I mean, Bank of Jamaica, I mean, we continue to have discussions with them. But this is really the guidelines under which the service is offered today. So the issuer can be a non-bank issuer. Right, and the central bank basically just requires that there be some minimum capital invested in that business. The issuer has to be licensed. In addition to the issuer being licensed, they also require that the agents have to be registered and licensed. So the question of fit and proper as it relates with not just the issuer, but the agents themselves is also important. And obviously, in any kind of licensing regime, there's a question of fees. So there are fees that are payable as per the guidelines. One of the more important aspects of the guidelines is that there has to be an independent custodian bank. And this custodian bank is supposed to, on a daily basis, be reporting investigating and reporting to ensure that the funds that are in your mobile wallet ecosystem are fully backed by cash in a bank account. I mean, that's very important for a regulator. I mean, in the early discussions with Bank of Jamaica, what they really said is they want to ensure that this mobile ecosystem isn't creating money and the inflationary aspects associated with the creation of money. So it's very important that on a daily basis, your mobile ecosystem is backed by money in a bank account. And that's one of the aspects of the regulation that we think will augur well for the success of mobile payments. The other thing about the regulations is it basically is, and you will see in the table, in the lower table, it also speaks about the kind of limits, the kind of wallet sizes. And you will notice, I converted it to US dollars so you can see. You will notice that, I mean, the daily transactions limits are very small. And they did this intentionally to basically ensure that it cannot be abused, for money laundering and things like that. The level of daily transaction sizes, even in your upper tier, is only $387 per day. Right, and the capacity of the wallet is only 1,000 US dollars. So it's not really a solution that's aimed for persons who want to put a lot of money in, to launder money, to clean money, and things like that. And I think that was very intentional from the Bank of Jamaica's perspective. You will notice that there are 3 tiers. So there's a tier 1 account with the wallet limit being 50,000 Jamaican dollars, tier 2 100,000, and tier 3 150,000. In the next slide, I will actually demonstrate what the KYC requirements are for each tier. So in terms of your tier 1, which I indicated was 50,000, the registration is not onerous. Each person basically just needs to have their tax registration number, which is the Jamaican equivalent of your social security number in the US of A, a photo ID, and then their demographic information, which has to be captured in the system. The photo ID is really a government-issued ID, but the regulations also make provisions for persons who, for some reason or other, don't have a government-issued ID. So they can actually get a letter from a JP, a Justice of the Peace, which is duly validated. And that can be their source of identification. To enable you to upgrade to tier 2, all of the above, plus you need to indicate what's your source of funds, which can be, an indication of your bank account or a letter from your employer. So that actually allows you to upgrade to the 2nd tier. And then the 3rd tier, it's all of the above, plus you need a proof of address. So the system as we have designed it, someone can walk into our location and pretty much qualify for the tier 1 account and effectively start using it. If they're interested in upgrading to tier 2 or tier 3, they provide the additional information, and then centrally, we validate the information before their upgrade is approved. So the upgrade to tier 2 or tier 3 actually has to be approved from our head office, because we operate through agents, and we didn't really want to give agents the opportunity to be able to do that kind of upgrade without us validating the information that's provided. Some of the factors that has aided customer adoption since we launched, it's a very young deployment. We launched in February of this year. As you would have heard yesterday from one of the presenters, in Jamaica, the Bank of Jamaica actually allowed us, they require that we pilot. So Grace Kennedy is a conglomerate in Jamaica, and one of the conditions of the pilot was the participants couldn't be non-Grace Kennedy persons. So we could not go to the general public. So we were basically allowed to register Grace Kennedy employees. They were basically able to do all of the services in the system. And then at the end of the pilot went for about 6 months. We had to formally report to the Bank of Jamaica with pretty much all of the metrics, all of the areas that we were targeting, including security. One of the elements of security, we had to get an external security professional from North America come in and do a vulnerability test on the system. And they had to give a formal report, which was provided to Bank of Jamaica. Their own IT gurus went through and they looked at it to make sure that the security was solid enough for a product to be deployed. I was interested in looking at some of your findings. By my own recollection, I'm not an IT person, but by my own recollection, when I saw some of the things that you were highlighting, I recall them being highlighted in our document, and we were passed. So I think we can comfortably say that we satisfied a lot of the security considerations. So some of the factors that aided customer adoption is the regulator has to be visibly engaged. Customers are very, very, very interested in knowing that a product that is launched in the market has gotten the approval of the central bank, particularly a financial product. So the engagement of Bank of Jamaica, and if you go to the Bank of Jamaica website, you will actually see where they've published the guidelines. They've published all of the entities that have been approved under the mobile wallet, and they have gone as far as publishing all the points of sale in terms of agents, their licensed agents. So it's a very transparent process. The size of the unbanked, underbanked population was also important, as Dr. Mc Naughton would have indicated yesterday. We do have a very significant underbanked and to a lesser extent, unbanked population in Jamaica. And there's a lot of cash transactions. There's also a high level of mobile phone penetration. I think at last count we were at approximately 110, 115%, because a lot of persons have two phones. There are actually two dominant carriers in Jamaica, and some persons actually have two phones. So the level of penetration is very high. As I said earlier, there's a high level of informal cash transactions. And that's one of the areas that the regulator was particularly keen on. If we can move a lot of these cash transactions into some kind of digital channel, the regulator's ability to know what's happening in terms of the movement of cash in the environment would be improved. So Bank of Jamaica is particularly interested in terms of these deployments because it is aimed at reducing the high level of cash transactions that are taking place. Interestingly, one of the things that came up in our surveys as well is the convenience of the existing customer touchpoints for bill payments and mobile top-up and things like that. Customers were basically saying that, all right, these locations close at 5 o'clock in the evening. I am at work at 5 o'clock in the evening. So if I can get access to a channel that will enable me to do these types of transactions, even outside of your traditional retail locations, that will be good. And then there's also a discomfort with engaging with formal financial institutions by a segment of the market. And this discomfort is a function of the fees that are charged, the high KYC requirements within your traditional financial institutions, and just a general discomfort. I mean, some of the surveys have shown that, I mean, within a particular demographic, there is a discomfort in going into your formal banks. They don't feel like they're wanted. They don't feel like their business is important. So, you know, I mean, that also aided in terms of the deployment of this service. And then the level of trust or goodwill that's vested in the issuer is also important. I mean, our surveys actually show that there are certain categories of issuers that while persons are engaging them today in different areas, they don't want them to have their money. So, you know, that is also a very important finding from our own surveys. Grace Kennedy itself has been around for 95 years. I mean, a lot of the demographic, the targeted demographic, have also been using our services. They grew up on our food stuff. We are the Western Union agent, so they're in our locations doing their remittance transactions. They're paying their bills through our Bill Express service. So there's a level of trust associated with Grace Kennedy that also augured well for the customer adoption. Our own product development, so we actually came up with a product after all of these consultations where the channels were both the iOS app. There's an Android app as well, right? But interestingly, there's a part of our demographic that has feature phones. So what we did is we actually created the capability for persons to be able to access the service using USSD. A simple *170 number sign short message actually opens the same menu that you would get from an app. I mean, it's not as colorful, but you basically are getting the same functionality. We also have developed multiple user interfaces. So while the transactions have to originate from the mobile phone, and it has to originate from the mobile phone that was activated when you registered. So even having registered for the service, if you switch devices, you have to go through the process of deactivating it on your source device and then activating it on the new device. You have those capabilities, but we also thought it important that from a security perspective, your transaction is tied to your own device. And then in terms of the web application, you're traveling for a month, you can log on to the internet with your authorized profile, and you can disable your account. So you can disable your account, basically through the web interface, right? And I mean, what we also have built into the system is that if there are 3 concurrent failed attempts with your PIN, your account is locked. And it can only be unlocked by making a call to our customer service center, and making that call, you you validate yourself as the owner of the system, and then we unlock it. So we've built some of those controls in the system to kind of protect the customer. As I said earlier, the activation on your phone is through a PIN that is sent to you. You need PIN access to get into the app or into the USSD portal. Even having gotten into the app, if you're doing a transaction, again, you need the PIN to approve the transaction. And then one of the important things is for every single transaction that impacts your balance, there's a notification that's sent to you, both in the app and by SMS. So in the unfortunate circumstance that someone gets access to your phone, you still will be alerted that something has happened. If they got access to your PIN on your phone, there is still that notification that takes place. And then in terms of the distribution, as I said, we do offer money services, so we're using our wide agent network across Jamaica. Currently, we're at 150 locations, and each of them has to actually be approved by the Bank of Jamaica. And we're in the process of building out a merchant network now, where persons can actually spend using their mobile wallet. So right now we have about 120 merchants who have already been duly registered. A wide diversification of merchants. There are supermarkets, there are pharmacies, there are wholesale stores, there are services, there's a spa, there are insurance companies, there are money services. So we've basically built a wide diversification of merchants, and this is an ongoing process. Right now, we're focusing on building out a number of remote touch points so that persons can basically use the service. That on the left is an indication of the USSD screen. So as you see, it basically represents the same services that on the right you're seeing in the app. Peer-to-peer transfers, which is the norm in most of these deployments, one being able to send funds from one person to the other. We've built the capability to load your Western Union remittances on the wallet remotely. You don't have to go to a location. Bill payments, we do have a bill payment service, so we're currently collecting bills for over 40 different companies, including all the utilities and insurance companies and the like. There is mobile top-up available for both the two major carriers. Merchant payments, and we've also given them the capability of sending out discount coupons to the wide population. I had a discussion with one of our hotels, and they're quite keen on that because in periods of low occupancy, they're able to send out a discount coupon, 10% off of their room rates, to try and attract persons into their location. And then we basically allow for loyalty points. In terms of customer protection, Bank of Jamaica was a tickler in terms of making sure that there are things in the contract to protect the customer. So we are prevented from disclosing customer information to third parties. We must use our best efforts to ensure the system is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It speaks to training the customer on the proper use of the system. Where we are unable to pay out funds, it has to go into detail as to how customers will get their funds from the custodian bank. Disputes resolution subjected to mediation and binding arbitration if mediation is not successful. So these are the things that the Bank of Jamaica requested that we put in the customer contract. And these are all available online. You'll see the links on the last page. In terms of the product, we spoke about some of them, but we basically also ensure that customers are protected in terms of the design of the product. And I did speak about some of them earlier. There are some critical success factors that we deem necessary for a successful deployment. There's the regulatory, and it's not just the regulations that are published. There has to be effective regulatory monitoring on an ongoing, over an ongoing period. Distribution is important in terms of the agents. The technology must be capable, secure, and effective. The customer, there should be strong goodwill vested in the issuer. There should be diverse use cases. The more use cases, the better the possibility of success. And even within the issuer's environment, there should be a strong compliance program to ensure that the system is not discredited by persons who want to use it for for the different means. So I have posted some websites. So boj.org.gm is the regulator site. So they do have a link where you can see all of the deliberations around the mobile payments, including the guidelines and the approved issuers. We have our own website at Grace Kennedy, and then there's a website for GKMPay, which is the product, which again, we have quite a bit of information there. There are information in terms of what you need to register. There are the terms and conditions. There is the application form. There are some videos. There are the services that are being offered. So all that information, I invite you to visit the websites and look at it. And I mean, we're available for questioning.
Thank you.